Test 1, 2, 3, 4. Test 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6. Check 1, 2, 3, 4.
Call this meeting of the Board of Supervisors, November 12, 2013, to order. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Bronson?
Present.
Supervisor Carroll?
Here.
Supervisor Elias?
Presente.
Supervisor Miller?
Here.
Chairman Valadez?
Present.
Let the record show all members are present.
Today's invocation will be offered by Pastor Bob Savell from Tucson Area Christian Fellowship. If you could please come up, and it will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Supervisor Elias. Please stand.
Well, good to be here today. Father, we just thank you for this great day in Pima County, Arizona. Father, we ask for your blessing on this day. God, we ask that you would grant our Board of Supervisors wisdom and discernment as they legislate and guide our county. Father, we just ask for your grace and your blessing. And Lord, I also like to pray for our homeless veterans, especially in this county. I ask, God, that you would be with them, you would guide, you would provide shelter and rehab for those that need it. And Lord, we just thank you for this great state of Arizona. Amen.
Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Today's, next we move on to Pause for Pause, and today we have Officer Bowden with Kilo, who's supposed to be an American Bulldog?
Yes. Or an overgrown Chihuahua. Good morning. This is Kilo. He came with the name. We didn't name him. I think he looks a little bit more like a peanut or a peewee or something sweet. He is just a big ball of love. This is an older dog. He's about 9 years old. Full of energy, though, it seems. It takes a little bit to wear him out, but once he's worn out, he's done, and he will settle down. But he's a big boy, and he's going to need a little bit of room. So if you're in a very compressed living situation, this may not be the dog for you. He has been with us since August, so he is discounted. He's free except for the $15 licensing fee. He's already been neutered, so that's been taken care of. He can go home straight away. Already has his microchip in him. He is housebroken, it appears. His kennel has been found clean every morning, and he waits until he's walked outside of the kennel. So he is waiting. He's not going just because he has to go. He's holding it. So that's an indication that he has been housebroken and lived in a home environment for many years before coming to us. He was found in a wash, tied to a tree, in early August, in the heat of early August in Tucson, Arizona, with no water and the minimal shade of a mesquite tree, which is very, very tiny, tiny leaves. So he was pretty hot when he was picked up, and nobody came for him. He did have a microchip. The person that had previously owned him said that he had, been out of their care for quite some time. They had given him away. So he's gone from home to home. He's looking to settle down. We'd like to adopt him into a home that is committed to keeping him for the rest of his years. He's already 9, so it's probably, he's probably got a good solid 5 years left in him. And he's looking to find a home rather than continue to stay in the shelter, although we do take great care of them, and he's obviously been fed quite well since August. It's not a home environment that he would thrive in. Big boy, like I said. I fortunately have a few pounds on him, but he's pretty strong. And just a ball of love, though. Just nothing but energy. A lot of times people are intimidated by a large dog, but this guy is he just wants to lick you and have some treats. He will sit for a treat. We'll see if he will perform on command. Kilo. Sit. See, well trained. I believe he'll shake as well, but he's busy with his cracker right now. He's got some very, very large feet. Just a big dog all around. If you've got the room for a dog like this, I highly recommend this one. He's a good one. It's available. You can come on down to see him as of noon today. We're open from 12 to 7 on weekdays, 10 to 8 on weekends. We're located at 4000 North Silver Bell. And like I said, because he's already been neutered and microchipped, he's ready to go today. So the first one there at noon can have him. Just going to be a $15 licensing fee, and he will be current on his rabies vaccination and ready to go and ready to be an addition to any home. He is, like I said, quite a large dog and just quite capable, but is very, very friendly and really just wants the attention and wants to spend some time with some sort of companion, be it a man, woman, child. He's just happy to be with anybody and has been friendly to every person and dog we've come across this morning, and I've been with him since about 6:30 this morning. So he's been quite a companion for me all day, and I really hope the best for him. And please, if you've got room in your home, consider adopting an animal from an animal shelter. Those dogs and cats are not there by their own fault. They're there by the fault of a society that's failed them. But amen, we have stepped in and developed places like shelters where they can go until somebody does come along to come and get them. So he's available today. Please come on down. We will try to hold off the crowds so you can get to him. He will be waiting patiently in his kennel, and hopefully we'll get him out of there by the end of the week. We've always had good luck here. So, and again, thank you guys. And I understand the increased shelter was approved last week. Thank you so much for that. We certainly can use the space, so it's much appreciated, very much appreciated by both the animals and the staff. So thank you so much. And this is Kilo. You're welcome to change his name. Like I said, Peanut might be a little bit more fitting for him.
Mr.
So,
Chairman.
thank you so much for your time.
Supervisor Carroll.
Thank you so much, Officer Bowden. I just wanted to mention that I wasn't there on my day off just relaxing. I was on a mission when I saw Officer Bowden and her daughter at the Pima Animal Care Center this weekend on her day off. So I appreciate you being there and having your daughter. It was a nice introduction, and thank you again. Good luck to you on this dog.
Thank you.
Supervisor Elias.
Well, great dog here this morning, Kilo or whatever you decide to name him, Peanut or I don't know. But I would say that, there's more staff in the room than audience today. So I'm sure Mr. Huckleberry would be more than willing to produce a extra meritorious pet owner certificate for any employee who takes home this 86-pound dog. No chance, huh? Okay. Well, anyways, please be good and talk to folks about adopting this dog and giving him a chance to get out of that animal care shelter and looks like he's really a nice animal who's really very friendly and everything. Look, even likes the pastor. How about you, Pastor? You could take home the dog. You've got two already. What a great, I appreciate that. That's a wonderful thing. So anyways, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hardly recognized you out of uniform. Nice to see you there.
So we have several changes to the agenda, both the regular agenda and the consent calendar. Regular agenda, page 2, item number 7, executive session. Gulab Hospitality LLC versus Pima County. Staff requests this item be removed from the agenda. Page 4, item 14, precinct consolidation. Staff requests this item be continued to November 19th. Page 4, item 14. Page 5, item 23, development services, unfinished business, CO 1273128, Casa Rio Estates. Applicant requests this item be continued to the Board of Supervisors meeting of December 10th. Page 5, item 24, development services, P21-13-023, Asarco Mine on East Pima Mine Road. Staff requests this item be continued to the Board of Supervisors meeting of November 19th. Consent calendar, page 9, item 7, grant application acceptance, acceptance community development and neighborhood conservation. Staff requests this item be removed from the agenda. Page 9, item 10, county administrator quarterly contracts report, third quarter 2013. Staff requests this item be removed from the agenda. Without objection. Yes, ma'am. Please come to the mic. Please pull the mic towards you. Identify yourself for the record.
My name is Sheila Bowden, and I'm And a neighbor in Casario Estates, which is item number 23 that you wanted to delay again. This is the third time this has been delayed. This is the third time I've been down here. Yes, and I have another neighbor who's coming down to also speak opposed to this. We don't understand why this is being delayed. We saw the letter, it's online, that he's working with the neighbors. And I can tell you, none of us have heard from him. I made a call to a neighbor yesterday, to a neighbor's property that abuts his property. He's not heard a thing from him. We don't see any evidence that he is working with the neighbors. So we don't understand why this is continually being delayed. There's several neighbors that are opposed to this.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Mr. Huckleberry. This was delayed at the request of the applicant. What is our, and perhaps the clerk can address it too, what is our policy regarding these delays? Are they granted as a matter of course if the applicant requests?
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Bronson, generally yes. And under cases where there's repetitive continuances, the board typically on about the third or the fourth tells and instructs the clerk to notify the applicant in writing that the matter will be heard and not continued again at the next meeting.
Okay, well, this is the third time.
And Mr. Chairman, if I weigh in, the applicant is present. We were anticipating sort of the concern about the continuance because of the neighbors showing up over and over. So the applicant is present today.
Thank you, Ms. Bowden. Sir, if you could please come up, identify yourself for the record.
My name's Joshua Myers. I live at 5330 East Placida Casario. And yeah, we can move forward with the hearing today. I have been working with neighbors that are immediately affected, other than Mr. Geiger, and they're all in support. Mrs. Bauer, she doesn't live on Placida Casario. She lives off of River Road. So I'm not quite sure why she's so concerned about the lot split, but we can move forward with it.
Not at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you. What's the will of the board? Does the board wish to hear the item?
I
Supervisor
move
Miller.
that we hear the item 23, Development Services Unfinished Business for the lot split in Casareo's
We can just
Estates.
amend the
Consent agenda.
the continuance to go ahead and include it.
Okay.
Okay, for the record, we will go ahead and hear page 5, item number 23. It will not be continued. We will hear it today. Okay, without objection, as amended, those will be the changes to the agenda. All right, we have a presentation to the Boys and Girls Club Tucson Day.
I'll move the item.
Second. Motion and a second to approve the item. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Is there someone here to receive the proclamation? All right. Well, as they're not here, I'll go ahead and just read it from the dais, and we'll make sure that they get it. Whereas although the Boys and Girls Club of Tucson have been serving Tucson's most at-risk youth since 1957, the clubs actually recognize 2013 as the 50th year anniversary. It was in 1963 when two boys clubs were combined to create Boys Clubs of Tucson. Whereas more than 30 years ago, the Boys and Girls Club of Tucson were instrumental in the movement to combine boys clubs with the girls clubs, and in the process helped foster a movement where all boys clubs became boys and girls clubs, both locally and nationally. And whereas the Boys and Girls Clubs of Tucson have continued to focus on our community's most at-risk youth by providing safe environments and a positive place for youth, especially after school when youth are most at risk. And whereas the Boys and Girls Clubs not only serve more than 6,000 members of the clubs, but by being proactive, serve an estimated 13,000 kids in the Tucson community by offering a proven youth development strategy. And whereas, although the Boys and Girls Clubs provide $5 memberships for youth ages 7 to 17 during the school year and $5 during the summer, the clubs never turn away for an inability to pay. Youth unable to pay the fee may instead complete a community service project. And whereas the Boys and Girls Club continue to look for positive ways to engage other youth services agencies, school districts, and the business community through the use of its modern facilities, now therefore be it resolved that the Pima County Board of Supervisors recognizes and honors Boys and Girls Clubs of Tucson Day on November 16, 2013, and encourages everyone to join in the celebration by visiting one of the club's 6 strategically located clubhouses and learn how the clubs benefit our community. Passed and adopted this 12th day of November 2013. So, okay, we do have another presentation.
Big George. I'll move the item.
Motion and a second to approve item number 1 on the addendum agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Supervisor Carroll. And do we have Mr. Paul O'Rourke here?
Yeah, he's in.
Mr. O'Rourke.
Mr. O'Rourke happened to be Giant George's handler.
When she said that was a big dog, that wasn't a big dog.
I was going to say, Giant George weighed in a little more than our friend this morning, but I knew him since he was a pup. I was a neighbor of the Nassers, and the most important thing I can tell you is that he was a legend, obviously an internet sensation, but also he was faced adversity in his title of world's greatest dog. Someone actually unseated him while he was crowned world's greatest and tallest dog. And the family continues to honor his memory because we know in truth he was the world's greatest, tallest dog. And I also want to say that the family has been a great role model of taking the adversity of losing their dog, and it was so close to his 8th birthday, that they've decided, George was famous. He got a book. And the book was a great selling book, and inside the book it talked about things that we can do, which all politicians should be dedicated to, and that's to be honoring civility, community, and charity. I think I'm trying with this attempted mustache because it's Movember for prostate research. It'll be leaving shortly, right at Thanksgiving, probably for the family photos. But I want to say that Giant George Day, George, as I said, passed away just a few weeks ago, but his birthday would have been Sunday, November 17th. So we're rallying Friends of George by Giant George Service Day and asking people in this community to open their loving homes to more pets. We're asking people in this community to give to the shelters, and they're listed here. We've got Pima Animal Care, of course, the Humane Society, Hermitage Cat Shelter, Asmira, the Holistic Animal Care Shops, as well as many other charities that we know you support individually and do it in the spirit of the sharing that the Nassers did with Giant George. I want to ask Paul to say a few words, but I want to remind everybody that the first annual Giant George Service Day will be hosted at Bookman's Sports Exchange. It's a new Rancho Center Bookman's. It's 3330 East Speedway between 1 and 3 on Giant George's birthday, which is November 17th. Take it away, Paul.
Thank you, Supervisor Carroll. And this is a absolute honor for us. Giant George Day is really about giving back to those animals that don't have homes. So what we're asking on November 17th is people in the community go out and donate their time and or money to their favorite animal charity. Then join us that afternoon at Bookman's, as Supervisor Carroll pointed out, to really celebrate George's life. And we want to make this an annual event, and this is really kicking it off for us, and this is a fantastic honor. So thank you again.
Thanks, Paul. Please just look on the internet and take a look at the size of this dog and the effort that it takes to manage and care for a dog that size, but then also to get him ready and to bring him to events like we had at the opening of the Pima Animal Care Shelter expansion. George was there. Many times when we needed a celebrity at events, both Dave and Christy would bring George and their child. So it's important for all of us to remember that the Animal Care Center, the Humane Society, all the other animal charities certainly require your support. But first off, they also require for you to be an ambassador and find families that can better their lives through an adoption. Adopt, never buy an animal. Thank you. See you there.
Thank you.
I look forward to it. I hope all the board members know they're invited, as well as all the administrative staff. And I'd like to get us a picture if any board members want to join with Giant George. We're trying to continue his celebrity, and these will be posted on his Facebook. I'm a friend of George on Facebook. Are you? There we go. I think we can move over just a little bit. That means it'll work. Yeah.
And thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, we have several items on the executive session calendar. Is there anyone here who would like to address the board on an executive session item only? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to go into
So
exec.
moved.
Second.
Motion and second to go into executive session. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. We will recess to the sound of the gavel. Call this meeting back to order. We had several items on the executive session calendar. Council, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, item 7 was pulled on the regular agenda, so turning to executive session items 8 and 9 on the regular agenda. This involves First American Title Trust 9139 versus Pima County, and these are two cases, Pima County Superior Court case numbers TX 20101046 and TX 2010-1306 pending in the tax court. These matters involve the plaintiff's challenge to the valuation of approximately 612 parcels for tax year 2011 in the Madera Highlands subdivision. The proposed settlement would reduce the fair cash values of the tax parcels shown on Exhibit A, which has been submitted to the clerk's office in a lengthy exhibit, from the current assessed values on an administrative settlement for tax year 2014. The values will not roll to tax year 2012, but will be addressed in the proposed settlement of plaintiff's appeal of these lots in TX 2011-621, a future case. In any event, the approximate total decrease in taxes for all parcels involved in both of the current cases before you today will be about $50,934.60 inclusive. The Pima County Attorney's Office recommends the proposed settlement, as does the County Attorney's Office.
Move
the
the
Assessor's Office.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'll move the County Attorney's recommendation and Assessor's recommendation.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Hang on, let me get clarification on items 9 and 10, correct?
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Supervisor Elias.
I'd just like to, since we have 612 parcels that we're talking about here, I was going to ask Chris to read each one individually, but it would bore the heck out of everybody, so we're not going to do that. But what I would say is maybe, Chris, you could give us a general description of where these lots lie, so that everybody understands. Is that fair?
Yes.
I think
Actually, I don't know where this is. I think it is down near Interstate 10. Interstate 19 in the Madera area.
Right.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure everybody has an understanding in general of where these are for the public's know, right to know.
All right, the motion and the second before us is the approval of item number 8 and 9 in concurrence with the county attorney and the county assessor. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Council.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the next item for executive session is item 2 on the addendum agenda, and that concerns Marana 670 Holdings, LLC, Arizona Limited Liability Company versus Pima County. This is Superior Court case number C 2012-133 and pending in the tax court. This litigation involves a challenge to the valuation of 70 vacant, non-sequential subdivided lots in the subdivision known as Saguaro Springs. The subdivision is located in northwest Pima County, west of I-10 between Avra Valley Road and Twin Peaks Road. The proposed settlement would reduce the full cash value for each lot for 2012 and 2013 to $10,000 from the current assessed values. A conditional recommendation for settlement was extended by the Pima County Attorney's Office on behalf of the Assessor's Office, which was accepted by the plaintiff. The assessor subsequently has revoked his recommendation for settlement in this case. This matter was presented to you pursuant to our ethical obligations as your lawyers. As I said, the county assessor does not recommend the proposed settlement. We do not have a recommendation. If the board nevertheless accepts the proposed settlement, the change in value per lot will be from $15,523 to $10,000 for tax year 2012, and from $16,143 to $10,000 for tax year 2013. These values will not roll over. They will not roll over to 2014. But the approximate tax decreases for the lots in question would be $10,574.90 for tax year 2012 and $10,175.90 for tax year 2013.
I'm going to move the settlement as was presented and accepted.
Motion and a second to approve the settlement as presented. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Council.
The last item for executive session, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, is item 3 on the addendum agenda. This concerns proposed settlement in Pima County Flood Control District versus Fidelity National Title Agency, case number C 2013-2297, pending in the Pima County Superior Court. This matter concerns the condemnation of property for flood control and river park purposes. The county attorney seeks direction to proceed and authority to proceed as discussed in executive session.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to proceed as discussed in executive session.
Second.
Motion and a second to move as discussed in executive session. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Council, is that it?
That would appear to be it. Thank you.
All right, moving on to the back to the regular agenda. Board of Supervisors sitting as other boards. Flood Control District Board, item number 10.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move the item.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve item number 10. Is there any comments?
Yes, Mr.
President Miller.
Chairman. This item is for an amendment to the contract with Thomas J. Myers to continue groundwater modeling and review. I understand the contract was for $100,000, and this is just to finalize the permit or the research that he's doing on the groundwater. My position on this is that it is not in Pima County's jurisdiction. The water question comes under the federal government, and more specifically the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. It is a responsibility of the Corps of Engineers to do the studies to ensure compliance with the laws to the issuance of the Section 404 permit. This was a $100,000 contract, of which $50,000 is remaining. I believe the Army Corps of Engineers should be funding any necessary studies to ensure compliance, and Pima County Board of Supervisors shouldn't spend any additional money on this effort, and as a result of this, I will not be able to support this item. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Lewis.
I would just note that we're not spending additional money on this contract, but extending it. But heck, I'm in favor of us knowing independently how clean our water is, and then what the potentials are from a very damaging mineral exploration.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Carroll.
As the district supervisor for this area being affected by Rosemont Mine and the groundwater surrounding not only the mine site, but the groundwater of being affected by the Rosemont project and the Green Valley site as well, I'm more than willing to extend this contract term to 11/30/15 at no cost. It's important, as Supervisor Elias said, that we can assure the clean groundwater as well as clean air for our future as well as existing residents. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Miller.
I'd just like to clarify that if we did not have him do any further work, would we get this $50,000 back on this contract? Or is that a sunk cost at this point?
Mr. Huckleberry.
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Miller, the money that's been expended has already been spent in studies and modeling, and so therefore it's spent.
So there is no further studies to be conducted? Because that was my understanding, is to provide them with groundwater modeling and review. They've already done this groundwater modeling and review? Okay, thank you.
Yes, the groundwater modeling and the studies have already been done. The extension of the contract is simply if in fact once the final environmental impact study is issued, if there's further analysis required of that, then we need a mechanism in order which to bring him back under contract to actually expend those dollars. So the extension allows that. My guess is that there will be very little expended into the future unless we see something entirely different from the final federal environmental impact statement with regard to surface water and groundwater interactions.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Supervisor Carroll.
Lastly, Mr. Chairman, I predict that this is going to be a long process, and I do support the idea that we have all right as Pima County supervisors to inject ourselves into this important decision that's going to affect our county residents today and in the future. I certainly hope that all of us realize the impact that Rosemont Copper has shown in their modeling, how it will hurt, even at their own report, the surrounding area, and I feel it's important and want to commend county staff for the work that they've done thus far. And this Thomas Myers contract is part of that work, which I continue to support. Thank you very much.
All right, any further comments? Okay, in that case, the motion before us is on the approval of item number 10 under Flood Control District Board. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay.
No.
By your vote of 4 to 1, motion carries. Board of Supervisors sitting in regular session consent calendar. Is there anyone here who would like to address the board at a consent calendar item only? Hearing none, what's the will of the board?
I move to approve the consent calendar in its entirety.
As amended.
As amended, correct.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent calendar as amended in its entirety. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Moving to County Administrator, item number 13, recommended legislative agenda for 2014. Mr. Huckleberry.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, each year we solicit requests and information from various county departments and agencies with regard to what legislative positions ought to be a priority of the county for the upcoming session that will begin in January of 2014. We provided you 2 resolutions. The first resolution is the all-encompassing general position of the county with regard to legislation, giving guidance to our staff regarding legislative lobbying that may occur during the session. The second resolution is a resolution that's additionally more expansive in discussion of probably the issue of greatest concern, and that deals with transportation resources and transportation funding. I've also provided you with information in form of 2 graphs that deal with the historic relationship of the Arizona Highway User Revenue Fund, and this is the fund that's distributed to cities, counties, and the state highway fund for the highway operation, maintenance, and construction. And it indicates the need to examine, at least from our perspective and the recommendation of staff, increasing user fees that are associated with transportation programs. The last time the user fee in Arizona was increased, and the user fee with regard to transportation is typically a gas tax. There are a number of other taxes that are all vehicle or transportation related, tires, oils, those type of things. But the backbone of the revenue base is the gasoline tax. It was last raised in '91. The graph that I've shown you on Figure 1 is really a graph that shows the total dollars into the fund from the revenue sources. The lines that are, say, red and purple and yellow are diversions that have occurred over time by legislative action, either to support the Department of Public Safety or the Motor Vehicle Division, or simply the State General Fund. The green line and the green area under the curve is the amount of money that's available to the State Highway Fund out of the Highway User Revenue Fund, and it's a nominal amount. If you then take that nominal amount and deflate it over time, you get the black line. And as you can see in aggregate dollars, we're actually operating our transportation systems today with 20% less revenues than we had in 1991. If you then look at Figure 2, which on the back of the sheet is Table 1, and that's all the data points, and so if anybody wants to look at the numbers in great detail, you can. Table in Figure 2 really talks about doing the same thing, only normalizing it with regard to per capita. And so what we see is that Arizona is a growing state. Its population has increased since 1991, and if you were to basically adjust the revenues into the State Highway Fund on a not only an inflation-adjusted basis, but a per capita basis, you could see that we're operating a system today based on population growth at 50% less than we did in 1991. And that's kind of led to this discussion about, do we have enough revenue in the fund, and should we in fact be asking the legislature to seriously consider increasing the user revenues and the user fees into the fund so that it can actually keep pace with the demands that are on the system today. The issue, I think, that's kind of outlined in the resolution, particularly in transportation, deals with two primary issues. One is the diversions. And if you were to sum all of those areas under the red line or the purple line and the yellow line, you probably get over $1 billion or more of diverted money over time from the fund that would have been put into highways in Arizona. And if you then think about the need to stop the diversions, I think the first part of our legislative agenda is to try and how to stop the diversions and reverse the diversions. The diversions are still occurring because, as you can see, the gap in the red line is just as wide or wider this year than it's been in the last. The diversion that had stopped was the motor vehicle diversion. That's the yellow line, and some of the other lines underneath the purple. So, but we can stop the diversions, but we still are operating systems with revenues that are substantially less than they've been in the past, and that's the basis for the user fee adjustment. A lot of discussion has occurred with regard to, and I've sent the board another report, I think, earlier this year, October, in fact, where a National Transportation Research Group came out and rated Tucson's highways as 5th worst of any major metropolitan area in the United States. And they then took and attached a cost to each motorist in the metropolitan area of driving on those roads. And the number they attached in their research was $723 a year. And if you recall, one of the resolutions passed by the board already has been to raise the user fees of the gas tax up as much as 10 cents a gallon. If you take 10 cents a gallon, you talk 20 miles per gallon. Typical motorist may travel 15,000 miles. And you do the math, that's if the gas tax were increased 10 cents, that's a cost of $75. $75 as opposed to $723 makes it a 10-to-1 cost-benefit ratio of actually having an increase in revenue statewide for transportation. We also have a number of other areas in the legislative agenda. Probably the only other one that needs a very brief discussion is the area with regard is the item that is related to the Pima County Sports and Tourism Authority. And if you recall, that was a piece of legislation adopted several years ago that formed the authority, had them do a lot of studies and analysis. It was really driven towards baseball, and they derived a series of what we would call sales taxes related to tourism, whether it be a restaurant or it be some other type of structure. That particular legislation will expire, and in fact, I think calls for the authority to have an election if they want to remain consistent with the legislation. And what we're suggesting is that the Pima County Sports and Tourism Authority is nowhere near or close to having any type of consensus with regard to what we ought to be looking at for future sports facilities in the region. My guess is that's going to take years to develop any type of consensus on, and therefore what we've recommended is simply moving that election deadline date out 10 years. And again, that's just our option. We think that others will say that this is really a two-step process. First, move the election date, and then come to consensus about what the legislation ought to really say about the various professional sports options that may be out there. And if we can get that type of consensus, then off into that future, there may be an election. So this is again our request, simply to keep the Sports and Tourism Authority from having to call an election when there's nothing to have an election on, which we think would be counterproductive and a waste of money. So whether it's successful or not will be up to the legislature, but it's our best option available to us at this point in time, given the lack of any consensus on what ought to occur with regard to the Sports and Tourism Authority in the future.
Mr. Huckleberry, let me ask one question. You and I were both back in D.C. and met with several members of Congress on both sides of the aisle. I believe the HERF sweeps were brought up on a number of occasions by members, as I said, on both sides of the aisle. What was their concern, if you could please?
Yes, the chair of the House, I think Energy and Transportation Committee, because one of the issues is that the Federal Highway Trust Fund is bankrupt as well as our own funds. And they know that come October of 2014, the money that's shared by the federal trust fund of the states will be cut in half without an action to increase revenues at the federal level. And the comment was made, well, why should we worry about the state of Arizona since you're actually diverting your own highway monies to the state general fund? And so I don't think they looked upon that diversion very favorably and could use it as a argument to basically say, well, why don't you solve your own problems first and then come talk to us?
Mr. Chairman, as a follow-up to that, looking at your tables, both for Figure 1 and Figure 2, enlighten me. I think I understand them, but I just am now viewing them for the first time. As we look at the columns, you've got in the first column after the fiscal year, you got HERF revenues collected in nominal dollars, and then columns 2, 3, 4, and 5. If I read that correctly, these are all diversions?
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Bronson, yes, each one of those columns is a diversion to a specific purpose enacted by law, by the legislature during their...
But those were monies that should have been available for for roads, but went to various entities for other purposes.
Yes, as you can see in 1991, the amounts in each of those columns was zero. And then I think the first diversion occurred in 92 with funding a portion of the Department of Public Safety and a smaller diversion to what they call the Economic Strength Fund. And those continued, and you can see the HERF diversions to Motor Vehicle Division really didn't start until almost 10 years later. And then the vehicle license tax diversion, you got to remember, a vehicle license tax, a portion of it gets put into the highway fund. And then about in 2004, there was diversions from the vehicle license tax into the Department of Public Safety or the State General Fund, and you can see in that 1 year, 2005, there's a $178 million hit. Now, it drops back down to almost nothing, but then as you can see, as we begin the Great Recession of 2008 and 9, those numbers start climbing again.
Well, and they're significant, and during the same period, if you take 1991 as the base and put that at 1, by the time we get to 2013 today, the construction cost index has almost doubled. So we're getting less in terms of what we can accomplish with either maintenance or actual building new roads because we're paying more.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Bronson, yes, that's correct. What nominally would have built something in 1991 can only build half of that today.
Yeah, that's all right. Thank you.
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Miller and then Supervisor Carroll.
I have a few questions. The first one was the establishment of the County Sports Authority. I reviewed Title V and about the formation of the authority, and it says that the county has to have a population of more than 2 million. Are you telling me that you're looking to revise this legislation?
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Miller, there's various sports authorities. The one in Maricopa is ongoing, active, and funded. And what we're under a sports and tourism authority that is the county of a population in the middle range of typically greater than 1 million.
Okay. So is it a separate title under there?
Separate title, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you know what title it is?
I don't know, but
Okay.
it is in fact the reason why we lost our spring training teams. Because they, in fact, adopted a tax in Maricopa County to build, of all things, the Cardinals football stadium. They found that they had so much money that they began making allocations to Major League Baseball spring training, trying to lure additional teams from Florida, which they did, but nobody put a restriction about taking teams from Tucson to Phoenix, and so that's why we lost the Chicago White Sox, the Diamondbacks, and the Colorado Rockies.
Okay, so it was really this formation of this authority up there that really took away our spring
Yes.
training, our baseball teams. Okay, that's interesting, and I will find that other title on that one. The other question I had was, I agree the state needs to stop sweeping our HERF funds. I agree we should be reimbursed for the funding of state-mandated services. One of the questions I had was, one of these services is incarceration of sexually violent persons. In 2009, the state shifted 50% of that cost over to the counties. Do you know the number that has cost Pima County over these last several years? Roughly.
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Miller, I can't get to the number off the top of my head, but I can get you the summation of all of them, and it's significant. And typically what happens in many of these cases, and I think sexually violent persons started at a 25% and then went to 100% and then might be back down to 50, and we're trying to get the state to assume back that responsibility. I think the same thing with what we call individuals who are what we call restoration of competency. Restoration of competency was a law enacted by the state where they then took people who had committed crimes, sent them to the Arizona State Hospital, restored their competency, and then tried them. And that used to be 100% responsibility of the state, and now the state has shifted that responsibility 100% back to the counties.
Yeah.
And it's a bigger number. We can get you both of those.
It's even larger. Okay. And my final comment here is that working with the stakeholders to identify and enact revenue enhancements for existing HERF distribution system. This entails an additional tax burden on taxpayers and residents of Pima County who can little afford further taxation. This is my one sticking point with this, is that I can't support taxing the taxpayers further. I'm looking at the Pima County HERF fund sweeps over the period of years. We've swept $34 million out of a total of $728 million. The balance has gone to bond payments, and then there were funds that were available for road repairs. The road repairs have not been done. We have $5 million this year, which in my opinion is inadequate. And so I can't support additional taxes on the taxpayers for an additional gas tax. This is going to affect the least, those of us among us who can least afford it, the seniors on fixed incomes, and the individuals who are barely making it by and cannot afford hybrid or electric cars. Thank you.
Supervisor Carroll.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for this report, Mr. Huckleberry. I agree with the recommended legislative agenda, but I also want to mention that I've done a little background research and some meetings regarding the increase of up to 10%, up to 10 cents on the gas tax of the state of Arizona. I don't want anyone to think that this is in the bag. Obviously, it's going to be something that needs to be presented to the legislature, and it needs to be a persuasive argument. But I have talked to the chair of the House Transportation Committee, who happens to be a Republican who's in support of the idea. I've spoken to taxpayer associations who believe that we are now in a desperate situation and in fact have said they will not oppose an increase to gas taxes. And lastly, I want to say I stand, and as we all should, with a very conservative group called the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, who's in support of increasing gas taxes in the United States at this time. In Arizona, I do agree that there have been sweeps. I do agree now that there was never an IOU granted to us on those sweeps, and I think it's just almost an impossible Don Quixote type mission to believe that you can go to the legislature and regain any lost ground on the gas tax sweeps or the HERF money sweeps. So I appreciate the recommendations that you've made. I am willing to be in Phoenix or any other place where you'd like us to go to support an increase in the gas taxes. And I would do so as a proud Republican who believes that there is not going to be anything but a bipartisan solution to our increasing problem of revenues to fix our roads and maintain our system. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Elias.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just a bit of free advice to my friend Supervisor Carroll. I'd never give Chuck a free shot at telling me where to go, because I got an idea where he'd tell me where to go. Might not be so pleasant. Anyways, free advice. Do with it what you paid for it.
Thanks. I'll take that seriously, not personally, as usual.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just kidding, Ray. You know, Council, I'd appreciate it if you could get the correct title and citation for the Sports Authority item that Ms. Miller was concerned about, so that we make sure that everybody's on the same page and understands what piece of legislation we're looking into.
Mr. Chairman?
If I could finish, please.
Go ahead.
Oh, you want? Go ahead, Ally.
I just wanted to ask you if you knew what piece of legislation it is.
No, I don't. That's why I'm asking the council to please help us so that we're all on the same page. That's exactly what I said. You know, the question of these road improvements and road repairs from dollars that we swept from our HERF dollars. I want to make sure that just so that there's no odd implications here, that in fact all those road improvements were completed, that money was swept for, Chuck. Is that correct?
Mr. Gobert.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Elias, could you repeat the question? We're too busy trying to find the title over here. I think it's the same title, but a subsection.
But you, anyways, well, Ally, during her discussion here about her objections to the portion of this item that's about increasing taxes here on gasoline, said there were a number of sweeps that we made on our own HERF funds for road improvements and road repairs. I just want to make sure that all those road improvements were in fact legal and they were completed, and that those road repairs were completed as well, because clearly Ms. Miller said that they were not completed at all, and I'd like to know about that. Or am I putting words in your mouth? I would hate to do that. Oh, then please explain yourself.
Mr. Chairman, what I was referring to is that we have since 1993 received HERF and vehicle license tax revenue of $841 million. This is from Mr. Huckleberry's transportation report. $841,906,631. The legislative sweeps, which started in 2001 in Pima County, amount to $34 million, which left, well, there was $167,000 that were used to pay the 1997 bonds. Excuse me, $167 million, I'm sorry. And that left funds available for roads, and this is since 1993, a total of $640,595,000. So that amounts to roughly, since 1997, roughly 4.5% sweep. So it's not as significant in Pima County as we've made it sound. I have the spreadsheet here. I pulled it right out of Mr. Huckleberry's Transportation and Funding Investment Report dated March 2013. It was a big report. We all got it, so that's where that data came from. And that's my objection, is not the fact that I understand the voters voted for paying for those road widenings and new roads, the $350 million bonds that were passed in 1997, that they voted to do that and voted that they would use the HERF money. I think there was a lack of understanding that that meant there would be no road repairs. And, but there was money available for road repairs after those bond payments were made. That was my point. Thank you.
So, Mr. Huckleberry, was that money used for road repairs? And were those roads completed that were supposed to be completed as promised to the voters? And if I remember correctly, they were actually audited several times regarding that issue. But I'm just wondering, because I want to make sure the public doesn't think that we had money that could have been spent on road repair that was not used.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Elias, the 1997 Highway User Revenue Bond Program, and revenue is the operable word, has been approved by the voters and is being executed, and is probably, my guess is, about 80% complete. Projects have been done. The benefits are being actually received by those people who travel on those roads today. The difficulty is that when you issue a revenue bond, you have to use the highway user revenue funds you receive to repay the debt. So today, we get about $50 to $51 million of highway user revenue funds, and we then are required to first take right off the top about $18 million a year to repay the debt that's already been issued. So then that gives you a net of about $33 million to do all of the road repairs and everything else. The problem with the sweeps at the state legislative level was that we were managing fairly well prior to 2006 to dedicate a fairly significant amount of HERF revenues for transportation, pavement rehabilitation, and repairs. But what happened with the sweeps is that our margin, the marginal money that we had available, it just, kind of disappeared. And so there were years, beginning in probably 7, 8, 9, and even 10, where we did almost zero pavement repair and rehabilitation, and that's what we're facing along with what the city is facing. So while obviously the diversions were marginal when you look at the total amount of revenues over the time period, it's the time in which they occurred that caused us the greatest difficulty in repairing our roads, because we were already ramping up the debt repayment load on the bonds to finish those projects, and at the same time the state increased their diversions, so the amount of money available to us just simply went away for pavement repair and rehabilitation. So couldn't have caught us at a worse time.
Right, but very obviously here on your graph, as the state started to sweep more money, that's when exactly we ran into this problem about being able to spend more money on road repair. Prior to that, were we spending all the money that we were supposed to spend on road repair on, in fact, rehabilitation and repairs on our roads?
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Elias, yes, operating, maintenance, repair, construction. All the money that we received in HERF went into the transportation system that we have responsibility for, and that's in the unincorporated area.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Huckleberry.
Mr. Huckleberry, I do have a question. What is the size of the 1997 bond package?
Mr. Chairman, it was $350 million that was authorized. We probably have spent about $250.
And where's the bulk of those expenditures go? Where did it go regionally?
Regionally, if we talk about what roads required the widening the most, is all the roads that typically are in the very large growth area in the Catalina foothills, and I think in our reports we provided a table to the board showing the distribution by district of those bond fund allocations, and most of them were in District 1.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Miller.
And it would make sense that those monies would be spent where the most growth was, and that was the whole point of issuing those bonds. Based on that report, we've sold $262 million. We have $88 million left to issue. Now, this was from that report. I'm sure there's been an update since. Getting back to that, we had, showed those funds available per year. I agree, they're roughly $333 million a year. 11 and 12 was the year that we got hit the hardest with the sweeps of almost $8 million. And that was of the total of $34 million. So 11, 12, we had $20 million left to spend on the roads. I guess it gets back to, we had as you said, on average, $33 million a year to spend on the roads, and clearly the roads haven't been getting repaired. I'm not talking about the road widenings, I'm talking about the repairs. So, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Well, wait a minute, is that really accurate? I mean,
to that point, Supervisor Elias.
I'm just wondering, Mr. Huckleberry, you just got through telling us that, in fact, we went as far as we could with operations, repairs, and rehabilitations on our roads. And we did that in a manner that was related to safety issues first, right? And growth maybe second.
Mr. Huckleberry,
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Elias, again, the priority is typically when you issue bonds, they're a first and foremost payment. It comes right off the top of your revenues, period. No, you can't say, I'm not going to pay the bondholders this year because I have a sweat.
Can't do that.
Then the next obligation is we have a fixed operating and maintenance cost in the Department of Transportation. It's the staffing, it's
Correct.
the purchase of materials, it's all the activities they do. And then finally, we have, what's left over that can go into capital repair and rehabilitation, the kind of pavement repair, because that's our big issue, is pavement repair. That's the last thing on the list, and so as the sweeps become greater, that number becomes smaller and goes to, in essence, in 11, 12, probably went to zero.
I understand that. So I'm just trying to make sure that the public and all of us understand that Pima County lived up to its responsibilities and spent the money on road repair that it did have available to spend until the legislators absconded with it.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Elias, yes, I mean, and I think we're not the only county feeling this pinch.
Right, exactly.
There are 14 other counties that are having just as big a difficulty as we are. Maricopa is not, because Maricopa is a special case, and they actually have an annual capital allocation of $30 and $40 million that they are able to put into pavement repair and rehabilitation, just simply because of the funding mechanisms in Maricopa County. But I can guarantee you that Yavapai County, Coconino County has in the County Supervisors Association requested a very specific increase in the gas tax, very similar to what this board did. So I think it's becoming a very acute problem throughout the state. The state transportation director has just said this about 2 weeks ago, and we knew this was coming, is that they used to have 5 years ago, the Highway User Revenue State Fund, it was about 75% capital building and 25% maintenance. This year that has flipped completely. It's now 75% maintenance, 25% capital. Without any increase in funding, state system capital dollars are going away. The entire amount of funding available to the state for all 14 counties to operate and build the state highway system was $25 million for the entire state of Arizona for capital. So they've gone effectively into almost complete maintenance. And in a growing state where you're competing with other states for economic opportunities, unless we begin to recognize that we need to fund our infrastructure and transportation investments, we will become economically uncompetitive.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that that was cleared, and I think it becomes particularly important to note that we lived up to our responsibilities the best we could, given that the construction cost index did what it did in this period as well. So that speaks very well for us in terms of being efficient and smart about how we went about doing that. The problem is that that money just disappeared into the state coffers. And I got to tell you, I'm a loyal Arizonan. I'm seventh generation Arizona. I believe in the state of Arizona, and I believe that we should help out when we need to help out. But there's a point where we do it to our own detriment because of the politics involved at the state of Maricopa.
Mr. Chairman, on the heels of that "we're all in this together" kind of a speech by Supervisor Elias, I'd like to toot the horn for District 4 and say we're a high-growth area as well, Mr. County Administrator. And we did not get the lion's share of the HERF money. We did not get the lion's share of the bond package. And although there were doubts about the delivery of whether it be the HERF bonds or the impact fees to the boundaries and the regions where they were collected, or any other bond package, I think it was clear that any innuendo of misspending is completely false. I think that the auditors have produced reports that would say that all the political calculations of candidates and other special interest groups were proven to be inaccurate by the audits. Am I correct in that, Mr. Huckleberry? Do we need to call for any more audits?
Mr. Huckleberry?
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Carroll, we were given a complete clearance by the State Auditor General and the audit of our bond program.
Well, both Supervisor Bronson and I, who have been here since 1997, when those elections were held for the HERF monies, certainly would be derelict in our duties had we not kept track of those dollars, had we not voted for those audits, had we not received the clean bill of health. So I appreciate and want to put to rest the discussion over the fact that we are short. First, let me repeat, District 4 has been shorted, and I hope to make that up. But secondly, if it has to be through gas taxes, so be it, because there is not any pot of money that is available for us to maintain and increase the capacity of our roadways without doing so. And I'm glad that the Chamber of Commerce of the United States, and I'm glad other conservative business groups have agreed with this premise, and I hope that they'll get behind a campaign, as well as the other groups that we have been aligned with in all the other campaigns that we've made in regards to fixing and improving our road network in southern Arizona. Thank you, Mr. Huckleberry.
Mr. Chairman, I want to remind, and Mr. Huckleberry, I want to remind my esteemed colleague on my left that in the yeah, I oppose that, but no. What I want to remind him of is that in our comprehensive plan, the designated growth areas, and we are seeing the growth, is in the southeast and the southwest, so District 3 and District 4. And I would remind my colleagues that I didn't support the 1997 HERF revenue bonds for the very reason that I thought we would have issues related to maintenance. Unfortunately, I was prophetic.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Carroll.
I recall the election, and Supervisor Bronson was interested in pay-as-you-go. I'm not sure which would have worked out better, but in the end, I agree with you, Supervisor Bronson, that we need to look at the balance of our projects and know that District 3 and District 4 are slated for growth, that we are behind the 8 ball when it comes to our road systems in those districts. And I'm delighted to work with you, Supervisor. I don't think I have to persuade you. I don't think that I have to build a huge coalition, because you've heard it from my district. In fact, we have 2 great residents of Vail right here who are even more dependent on the county than they ever have been, aren't you, sir and ma'am? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Miller, followed by Supervisor Elias.
A couple final comments. One of the things that I think has created a lot of confusion is you just stated that the monies that were left over after those bond payments, which, you know, they're anywhere from $35 million to down to $20 million at the lowest in 2011-12, that they're used for paying staff salaries. This is something that I think has been very confusing, paying for the staffing and operating and maintenance of the Department of Transportation. Could I get a report on how much that amounts to each year? Because for this last several years, according to your memos, and admittedly, we spent $0 on road repairs until the election year when we spent $10 million. And then this year, we only have $5 million that had to come from the general fund, which tells me that we are literally spending every penny that comes back the available balance for road repairs. Like I said, it's you estimated roughly $33 million a year on staff salaries for the Department of Transportation.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Miller, the $33 million is all inclusive of operating and maintenance cost and staffing, and we can give you the staffing by fiscal year in a trend analysis over probably the last 10 or 15 years, and it's been going down. We have less people in transportation today than we had 10 years ago, and dramatically different than 15 years ago, with a lot of contracting options that the county has employed. So those staffing costs are low. Some would say, well, lower those staffing costs even more, and I think what happens is you exasperate the problem, because there's a optimal staffing and operational model, and I think we're probably pretty close to that. So I think, and we can give you 10 years history, 15 years history of staffing and expenses as
The
well
last 10
as
years we've-
the other operating and maintenance costs that just are fixed and recur every year.
And then regarding that one last question, I just want to make note that District 1 has the most failed roads in Pima County. 72% of the roads in District 1 are in failed to poor condition versus the other districts, which are 62% failed to poor condition. This is from Priscilla Cornelio's Department of Transportation report, the same report that I pulled this data from. I think it would be very helpful to have that data. That way we can know exactly how much is available for road repairs, because if I look at the report and I go through the report, we're showing this 33 million is available for road repairs when in fact it's used for staffing. Do other counties use these monies for their staffing? Is that the way it's done in all the other counties as well?
Mr. Zuckerberg.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Miller, every county is operated the same with regard. They all have a transportation department, and they pay for the salaries of the staff in the transportation department out of the Highway User Revenue Fund.
Got it.
And it's the same with the state transportation. The state has a very, significant, robust department and organization, and every dollar of staffing expenses of the state's paid out of the Highway User Revenue Fund.
Thank you.
Ms. Supervisor Elias.
I would just comment that, it strikes me that our staffing level has gone down significantly in the past 5 years due to financial troubles and that we've all had, and we've lost some good people. But really that is the efficient way to staff a transportation department that has been continuing to do significant projects during this period. It's not like work just came to a halt and everyone sat around drinking Red Bull, getting tense all day. That is not what has transpired here. And in fact, our staff has done a good job on many projects in District 1 and in District 4 and in District 3. And so, I guess I'm supposed to pitch for District 5 at this point, just to prove that I'm out there defending my constituents. And I will do that, and I'll also support the chairman because oftentimes, he gets left out of these discussions because he's running the meeting. But I'll support the residents of District 2 and their road needs as well, because they're significant and our road repairs are significant.
We appreciate it.
And we share that. We share that, Supervisor. But in the mode of good, caring time consumption, let's get on with things, and I'm going to go ahead and move items 13A, including Resolution 2013-104, and item 13B, including Resolution 2013-105.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve item number 13A and B and resolution number 2013-104 and 105. Are there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay.
No.
By your vote of 4-1, motion carries. The board will take a 10-minute recess and will return at sound of the gavel. Call this meeting back to order. We are on elections, item number 15, canvass.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move the canvass pursuant to Arizona Revised Statute, Section 16-642, for the November 5th, 2013 Vale Incorporation election.
Second.
Motion and second to approve item number 15. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Moving on to Industrial Development Authority, item number 16, resolution number 2013-106.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Elias.
I'll go ahead and move item 16, Santan Montessori School Project, including resolution 2013-106.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve item number 16 and resolution number 2013-106. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Moving on to item number 17.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Elias.
I want to go ahead and move item 17, a request for redemption of waiver of exemptions, brought forward by the county assessor. And I'll go ahead and move item 18 as well, development services, final plat without assurances.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve item number 17 and 18. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Hearings. Board of Supervisors, item number 19, unfinished business, appeal of a review officer's decision.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Carroll.
Mr. Chairman, knowing that this is a hearing, I don't know if there's anyone who wishes to speak on this item yet. I have had not only conversations with the property owner, but I understand the county administrator has. We've also had Mr. Burke and Mr. Staples meet with the property owner, who is attempting now to come to closure on this very complex problem that he's faced with by the state legislature's new law. So I'd like to ask that, because after January 1st, all this is null and void, that we have at least until the very first meeting in December to let, maybe the first week, if the clerk could tell, a delay, to let the December 3rd, if that's okay with the board, and leave the hearing open.
Motion and a second to open the hearing and leave it open, continuing the item to the Board of Supervisors meeting of December 3rd.
Thank you.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Moving on to franchise licenses, permits 20 through 22.
Audience that wishes to address us on these items, I move to close the public hearing and approve items 20, 21, 22, franchise license permit.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing and approve items 20 through 22. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Moving to development services, item number 23, unfinished business lot split, CO 12-73-128 Casa Rio Estates, portion of lot 22. Staff report.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, before you is a request for a lot split to a portion of what is lot 22 of Casa Rios Estates. If approved, it would create two parcels, one of approximately 1.12 acres, the other of approximately 1.85 acres. This was originally presented to the board June 4th of 2013. At that point, the board continued it to provide for additional neighbor notice. Staff did send out through first-class mail notice to every property owner within the Casa Rios Estate subdivision, and additionally 300 feet surrounding the subdivision, so that request was fulfilled. It was then continued to August 19th. August 19th, the applicant requested a continuance to continue to work out potential neighbor concerns up until this date. On the record, the board was provided another request, but during the earlier portion of this Board of Supervisor meeting, I believe the applicant did request to go forward today. So what we have before you is a request to split lot 22. We have received approximately 7 letters of protest regarding the split. Staff is recommending approval and approval with conditions. We are recommending 5 conditions. The conditions should offset some of the difficulties with the property, and that is, it is fairly well constrained property. There are flood concern issues There are steep slopes. The property owner will be utilizing a septic tank on-site septic tank, which then creates additional setbacks and area limitations. They're working then with an existing lot configuration that isn't very conducive to a nice even split. But as a result, staff is still recommending approval with conditions. The property lies outside the Mavine Marie Behan Conservation Land System, and staff also would like to put on the record that there has been discussion about the validity of the lot split through the private CCRs. Staff has never taken a position and said, yes, the CCNRs were properly changed to allow for the split, or no, they were not. We simply have presented to the board the documentation that the applicant presented to us. So what we have is a situation, I believe, where there's a dispute between the applicant and a dispute between the neighbors, whether or not the CCNRs were properly amended to allow for the split. But staff's position is, regardless of that dispute, the board certainly is now aware of that discussion, but the board still has the authority whether or not to approve or deny a lot split within the confines of Title 18, the zoning code, and that could then be a separate action than the CCR. So if the board does approve it and the neighbors feel that the CCNRs would not allow it, they could certainly pursue privately whatever they need to pursue. And that concludes the staff's report.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I've got a technical issue. I'm trying to access your report, and I am not able to get it from my computer here. If I could get some technical assistance, I would appreciate it. Go ahead, Supervisor.
Technical assistance is on its way up. Supervisor Miller.
Mr. Chairman, I have some questions for Mr. Poirier.
Please proceed.
It's my understanding that, I understand there's a dispute about these recording of these CCNRs, but that 75% of the homeowners did in fact sign an amendment to the CCNRs that were then recorded via the recorder's office. That is my understanding. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Miller, from the documentation provided, it looks like that's correct, but there's no hard, fast rule that staff could determine if 75% is the correct number to change CCR. Some CCNRs are written where it only requires 50. Some may require 100. In this case, I believe the original, it was not clear. It was silent. So whether or not that construed an approval, again, staff is not taking a position.
And the zoning for this area is CR1. What is the requirement per lot? Because once these are split, we'll have a 1.2 acre and a 1.8 acre lot. What is the zoning per lot?
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Miller, the zoning of CR1 requires a minimum of 36,000 square feet per home. That will be met. However, whenever you are utilizing on-site sewer or septic tank, you need at least a full acre of area then to be allowed to utilize the on-site sewer. Sometimes you can make up with a portion of the right-of-way to do it, but really it's whenever you're using a septic, you pretty much have an acre minimum. There are other code requirements too, like HDZ, that may require a larger lot as well.
Okay, and these lots do in fact meet that, because 36,000 square feet is something less than an acre, right? 8 acres, about 44,000 square feet. Am I
correct? And staff is providing rezoning conditions, lot split conditions that will ensure HDZ compliance, and it will meet the minimum lot size. One thing too is again, even with our proposed recommendation with a lot of conditions, there are a lot of constraints in the site. And staff is putting on the record that although we're supportive of the request, if at the end of the day when someone comes in to actually design a home, and they may be left with a pretty small area of development, that staff is not going on record to support any type of future variances or HDZ exceptions that may come out of a site like this, which may have a smaller than normal development envelope that people are used to in that part of town.
Okay, and then were the individuals who filed the complaint letters, were they within the 300 feet notice area?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Miller, it looks like it's a mixed bag. So we have some within the estates and then others within 300 feet. We didn't do a detailed supermajority review of it because we're not triggering a supermajority here, but it looks like the vast majority are within the 300 feet or within the actual subdivision, correct?
Okay. That is the rest of my questions. I did Supervisor Bronson, did you have any questions? Okay.
All right. We do have speakers. This is the order of what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask the applicant to come up, identify himself for the record. He will be given 3 minutes to make his presentation. That will be followed by the speakers that I have, each of which will be asked to identify themselves and be given 3 minutes. At the end of that presentation, I will ask the applicant if he would like to rebut any of the points, and then we'll go from there. So with that, Mr. Myers? Please identify yourself for the record. Go ahead and pull the mic back, please.
Good morning, supervisors. Aha. Now everyone can hear me. This lot split has been going on for, this lot split process has been going on for far longer than I have seen any lot split, and I've been involved in quite a few of them over the years. Mr. Meyer started this process back in 2007 and then proceeded with the CC&R revisions in 2008, where he did have 75% of the owners at that time with their signatures of approval. The Casa Rio subdivision has had similar lot splits that have been approved by previous boards. The Board of Supervisors approved a lot split in August of 2000, September of 2000, May of 2002, October of 2004, and March of 2009, and those are included in your staff reports as well. One of the neighborhood concerns that I have heard, and I think is a very valid concern to listen to, is the construction of a new home that could block your views. I mean, a lot of us, live in that area because of the beautiful views, and we want to maintain those to the best extent that we can. The interesting part about this lot split is it will maintain an existing home and then create a lot for a second home. And that home, because of the natural terrain, does set significantly lower than the neighborhoods around it. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but we're talking 10 to 20 feet lower. Which brings me to the code and the current code and access requirements for this parcel. The proposed parcel does meet the current code with regard to the size and the setbacks and the sewer, on-site sewer disposal. And then the interesting things about this split and the things that are constrain it are access and floodplain requirements and HDZ requirements. And the access is being accomplished by a shared driveway, which will be done by an easement, so as to not create another driveway opening onto the cul-de-sac. It wouldn't be wide enough out in front to make that an attractive or even physically possible solution. And the HDZ will be the HDZ code will be met through a set-aside. And the applicant agrees with all the conditions presented in the staff report, including those regarding the paved access and the sewer and the setbacks and all these things. We agree with all the staff conditions and their recommendation for approval, and we look forward to resolving this neighborhood dispute. I'm happy to answer any questions. Mr. Myers, the property owner, is also present, and he's also happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions from the board?
I have one question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The question regarding the 75%, do you have the HOA requirements for amendment, the percentage. Do you have a copy of that by any chance, of what the requirements are? Were they defined in their documentation for the CCNRs?
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Miller, I do have in this staff report a copy of both the CCNR amendment with the signatures and the original CCNRs that were recorded long ago. And unfortunately, I am an engineer, not an attorney. So I don't know that I can have an exact answer to that that I would consider to be definite. Mr. Myers, do you happen to have reference?
Please come up. Identify yourself for the
Here's the
record
pages.
and address the question that was asked, please.
My name is Josh Myers. I live at 5330 East Placida Caserio. Yes, and this project started in 2007 with Jennifer Diedrich, who used to work for Pima County Development Services. And yes, there is a document out there that does support that a 75% majority vote in the homeowners association would prevail and allow for an amendment to the CCNRs. Therefore, we proceeded to contact a local attorney who drafted the agreement. The agreement was drafted. It took me over a year to get signed. And as far as I'm concerned, and the attorneys that I don't have present with me, it is enforceable with a 75% vote. And we did successfully amend the CCNRs. Now, these CCNRs, guys, this amendment that we're talking about, it only affects 3 lots. Mine is one of them. Another one of them's already been split. The other one, I don't know who it is, but I have had multiple confrontations with, I think, some of the people that are going to come up to you and talk to you. These are just conflicts that have even had nothing to do with a lot split. Personal attacks, lawsuits, I've been
I
asked.
asked you to just address the question, please.
Okay.
So keep your comments to the question.
Yes, then your answer is yes. They are enforceable, 75%.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
I have a copy of it here.
Supervisor Carroll, is it a question?
Yeah, it's a question.
Supervisor Carroll.
Forgive me, you live on the street, you're trying to split a lot that you live on. You're there every day. That's your primary residence.
Correct.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board?
Yeah.
Supervisor Leos.
You know, at the beginning of this meeting, we were going to continue this item, and I looked at your request for continuance. In fact, I looked at all 3 of them while we were here this morning, and it all talks about you working with neighbors. So why don't you tell us what you were doing with the neighbors to try and reconciliate
Sure.
This matter during this time, and why you asked for that continuance?
Yes. First of all, the first continuance, I was out of state, so I wasn't able to be here. I actually confronted Mr. Cotter on the street and asked him what his problem was with my lot split, trying to address his concerns and his issues. His statement to me was that he didn't have a problem with me splitting the lot, that this was more of a CCNR issue, but like I said, I've had issues with him on other issues in the past, so I'm going to let that lie. I have met with Overdon Olson. She lives in the cul-de-sac. She's supportive of the lot split. She would have signed a letter. I don't have it. I've met with Fred Pace. He is my neighbor directly to the west. He is supportive. I met with him a week ago. Evan Thompson lives directly to the south of me. He's supportive. He has no issues. You have a letter in front of you from Mr. Geiger.
Yeah.
Mr. Geiger originally signed the amendment to amend the CCNRs.
Mm-hmm.
He only did that after I met with him in 2008 and explained to him that the house would be 20 feet below his lot and he would never even see the rooftop. After he was okay with that, he proceeded to sign these amended CCNRs. For whatever reason, there's been some lawsuits in my neighborhood that have been cultivated by neighbors suing other neighbors, which I have chosen not to take part in. I believe Mr. Geiger may have been swayed in the last 6 years to maybe change his mind or forget the conversation we have in which he signed documentation allowing me to split the lot, because that was my main concern. When I originally wanted to split the lot, I had to have Mr. Geiger, I had to have Mr. Pace. Those are direct neighbors to the east and the west, and I got everyone else's signature in the subdivision as well. So I mean, other than Maurice Foyer. went out,
So
and it's
if-
all right here.
If I understand you correctly then, because those letters were signed at various times, or that petition was signed at various times, right?
Correct.
What were the dates, the two far ends of the dates, the beginning and the last person to sign?
Probably took me, it started in January of 2008, and the document was recorded, and I believe, I don't have the recording in front of me, it was at the end of '08. Took me about a year.
Okay.
And I went door to door, and I met with people, and I explained to them the situation, that there's 3 lots affected, and 75% agreed, you know, I mean, it's.
So my question was about the last 3 months, and you mentioned 2
I have met with-
conversations that you
correct,
had
I've met with
with
4
neighbors,
neighbors.
and another conversation that you had with a gentleman on the street.
Correct, yeah, no, I have met with neighbors and asked them, hey, do you support, are you going to oppose me? And I was going to.
But those were the only activities you had going on during this period while we've been continuing this item?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from the board? Thank you. Next, I'm going to call on Sheila Bowden. Please come up, identify yourself for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Sheila Bowden, and I have lived in Casa Rio Estates at 5370 East River Road since December of '97. We purchased in this community because of the large lots, the spaces between the homes, the privacy, the natural areas. And this is, to split the lots in this community would change the character of the neighborhood. It would just be a much denser, you know, many more houses within the neighborhood. I would like to address briefly the CCNR issues. I didn't know that we were going to talk about that today because at the last time we talked, you guys talked about it being a private issue within the neighborhood. So I don't have some documentation that would be helpful, but I only found out that the lot had been split, it may be about a year ago. The CCNRs had been changed about a year ago. I went around and talked to probably 11 different neighbors, and none of them knew the lot had been split. And I said, guess what? Your signature is on this petition, the amendment. And none of them knew their signatures were on this amendment. They didn't know what I was talking about. My husband's signature is on that amendment. I remember when Josh Meyer came to our house, and his request then was for a one-time easement on his lot. There's no way we would have signed something for an amendment to split any lots in Casa Rio Estates. So it's totally in dispute that there was anything that was done legally to get this First Amendment done. We are saying that it was illegal. There was never a homeowners meeting called. There was never a mailing to any of the neighbors, and we have several neighbors that would dispute that they even had their signatures on it. So I've been a resident, my husband had been a resident for nearly 16 years in this neighborhood. There are 4 houses between our house and the applicant's house, and there's 1 vacant lot. And as I said before, this would change the character of the neighborhood. It would, you allow 1 lot split, although this would be his 2nd lot split. It sets a precedent for the neighborhood, for others to want to do the same. Also, I did talk to the neighbor he mentioned earlier, Gordon Geiger. His property abuts Josh Meyer's property, and he completely and totally does not want this to happen. He's had problems with a driveway and a rerouting of the wash. It's washing out his property from some construction that Josh Myers did on his property, and he is completely and totally against this. And I think you'll find out from other speakers that another neighbor that abuts his property is totally against this too.
Please summarize.
So, in conclusion, I am completely and totally against this. I believe a majority of the people in the neighborhood are against this, and we'd like the character of our neighborhood to remain the same. Large lots, low-density housing.
Thank you.
I have a question. I have one question.
Supervisor
There
Martin.
have been 4 lot splits prior to this in that subdivision. Did you oppose any of those?
There have been 4 lot splits. There's 3 of them, I think, that are allowed in our CCNRs. We have our original CCNRs. There's like, and they're very, very old, and they were huge lots, and they were allowed. There was, I don't have it with me.
Okay, thank
Another
you.
one, yeah, so they were allowed. And the 4th one was one that, like I said, had to do with these CCNRs that were changed that no one in the neighborhood, or many people, don't know anything about.
Okay, thank you.
Mr.
Excuse
Chairman?
me, could I ask you to stay there for a second? Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Lewis.
I was going to say, we keep hearing all this chatter, so to speak, about problems in this subdivision and people suing each other and all of this going on. Would you say, from your understanding, that those are related to construction-type issues and the way the subdivision was developed, or this people don't like each other, or,
Well, actually,
what is this all about? I mean, because
I disagree with it. There's been a lot of suits and arguments. I don't know of any.
okay, so you don't know of
I
it,
mean,
other
I
than the
don't
one
know
you
of-
mentioned.
I don't know of any at large in the community. Myself, my husband and I had an issue with a neighbor. It started last fall, and it had to do with a disagreement with the CCNRs. He has 3 acres, we have 2 acres. Our properties are perpendicular to each other. He built a guest house, and the guest house, and our CCNRs say that it should be within 30 feet of the house, and he had it out there 50 to 60 feet. And that is the only.
Loud mother-in-law or something, huh?
It's like a 1,500 square foot house.
So it's a big guest
It's
house.
a huge house.
Yeah,
And he
wow.
built it behind our property, obstructing our view and impinging on our privacy. But yes, that was a private issue between he and I. It was
Understood.
And we went to court and we resolved that.
That's fine, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Miller.
I do have a question. I have the amendment here in front of me, which your husband did sign, and they
Stephen Ross,
specifically
yes.
reference paragraph 21, consisting of 2 lines of text on page 4 of the CCNRs is hereby deleted in its entirety. And on page 4, when I go to page 4, it specifically references Mr. Myers' lot, that it will, it was originally could not be subdivided, and
Right.
his signature is on there allowing the
My husband's is?
subdivision of this lot, and there's 75% of the neighbors
Right,
signed
and
this.
that is not what we signed, so I don't know how that happened. I was there when the conversation took place, and that is not what my husband signed. I listened to the whole conversation, and I went around to, like I said, at least 11 different neighbors and talked with them when I found out about this, and they said, well, they didn't sign it, and I said, well, guess what, here's your signature. And they
Yeah,
grabbed it
they
from me
did.
and looked, and they said, we did not sign this, we did not agree to this.
That is what is here signed, and it is recorded.
I
and
can't
it's-
say how that was done. I can just tell you that we
Yeah.
did not agree to that verbally or in writing, and
And as did Mr. Geiger as well, signed this document. So, okay, thank you.
Okay.
That's the only question I have for you.
any other questions?
Any other questions? Thank you. Let me ask Teresa Cotter to please come up, identify yourself for the record. You have 3 minutes. Oh, all right. Tom Carter, please come up, identify yourself for the record. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Tom Cotter, and I am sorry that this is the 3rd time we've been in front of you. The first issue I'd like to address is what the CC&R dispute is, because first off, paragraph 21, which Supervisor Miller just referred to, reads, "No lot subject thereof shall be subdivided except lots which may be resold as 2 lots." These specifically are 19, 20, and 22. So those 3 lots could be split into 2 lots, as Mr. Myers' lot has already been split in the past. Okay. Mr. Myers told you that this only affects his 3 lots. In fact, it doesn't. It takes the prohibition against lot splits completely out of the CC&Rs. And the way that happens, Mr. Myers told you there's some document that says in the CC&Rs 75% can accomplish that. I am aware of no such document, and I challenge him to produce it.
Have you ever seen one?
No, I have never seen one.
I haven't seen it yet either. I
Okay.
keep wondering.
The second point is, I'd like to address the filing of the proposed amendment to the CCNRs. I only found out it was filed less than a year ago when this subdivision came up. But in fact, what happened, to my recollection, is Josh came to our house quite a long time ago and asked that he could be allowed to subdivide his property because his mother was ill and he needed to have a place for his mom. And my response to Josh was, well, if you get Fred Pace's approval on one side and if you get Mr. Geiger's approval on the other side, it's okay by me. I then talked to my wife, who said the whole thing sounded a little fishy to her and she's a better judge of character, so I called the neighbors, who Mr. Myers told me that he had their approval. I called the neighbors and they said we had never heard about this. And so I wrote him a letter immediately revoking my approval, and heard nothing else about that for 5 years until we found out that it had been filed in relation to this. It was filed actually by someone named Chris Hill, another homeowner in the division, more than a year later, and I'm not exactly sure how that came about, but that's part of the issue if we end up litigating this, which I really hope we don't. This is a neighborhood of 30 families, and we don't need this heartache. But the county plat specifically says the only subdivisions are going to be those 3 lots which were oversized, and they could only be due twice. And Mr. Myers has already had his second time. I have no idea why your staff approves this, because they already say in their approval, yeah.
Staff respond.
Mr. Chairman, supervisors, we believe a plat says no further lot splitting without Board of Supervisor approval, not limiting to the 3 lots that are called out specifically in the CCRs.
Okay, got it. That's what I needed. Thank you.
But their report specifically says the last lot split on the Meyer property is causing the Geiger property to wash out. And so I came in front of you 3 meetings ago with respect to this and said, tell the neighbors about this, because nobody knew about it. You guys were kind enough to order that notice be given to the neighbors. 7 letters, 4 of whom live in the cul-de-sac, have come in protesting this, including Mr. Geiger on one side and Mr. Pace on the other side, who strongly oppose this amendment. And I don't understand Mr. Meyer's statement that he has worked with them, because we just called them this week. My wife has spoken to them and Ms. Bowden has, and neither one of them approves this lot split, and you have their letters saying that.
Mr. Carter, just a moment. Council, I believe you have a comment.
Yep. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this came before you on October the 15th, and at that time, I advised and reminded the board of its responsibility in this is to be focused primarily on the health, welfare aspects of this thing, but not so much the CCNRs, because people are going to battle over that. And I don't know, I mean, maybe Mr. Carter could agree or not that if that is indeed really the case for the neighbors, depending on what this board's decision is, because they can always go fight about the CCNRs, but I just wouldn't want the board's decision to be clouded by a question of the legality of something that's really a private civil dispute. It's a contractual matter between the members of the neighborhood, whereas you're exercising a police power. So I just ask that you keep that in mind when you make your decision. And in fact, you may want to articulate what that basis is so that we're not all drawn into this mess.
Absolutely agree, except your staff report specifically refers to the amendment to the CCNRs.
And Mr. Carter, I would ask you to please summarize.
All right. My summary is, everyone who has written to you says that this will change the neighborhood and that it should not be permitted. I just urge you to look at the people who have written to you and their concerns, and look at what your staff says, which is you can't fit a house on this lot anyway. So please, do not approve this lot split. And certainly, do not approve it on the basis that this neighborhood agreed that lot splits are now permissible. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'd
Supervisor
like to
Miller.
ask Mr. Poirier, is there issues with flooding on neighboring properties? Have you got any reports or studies that show there are issues with flooding?
Mr. Poirier.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Miller, the flood control department did report that there were previous drainage complaints in the neighborhood, but at the end of the day, their major focus is the floodway on the rear of the property, and that there isn't, then a huge drainage issue that would require a denial.
So those
There were, I'm sorry, the flood control did report they did respond to drainage complaints, and there are local drainage issues in the area, but according to the report, looks like they were resolved.
so those flood issues wouldn't be related to this lot being split.
Correct, it would be hard to make that.
Okay, so they were just
conclusion.
existing previously. Okay,
Mr. Chairman?
thank you.
Do you have a question for the,
No, just for Chris.
does anyone have a question for Mr. Carter? Thank you, Mr. Carter. Please proceed.
Thank you. Chris, what you said, I believe you. But probably mountainous terrain, probably significant little arroyos that go through all there that are changed by construction and by concrete getting poured. And those might be very real flooding issues to people depending on the size of an event that might take place, as opposed to major waterway flooding that would require a denial. It still might damage somebody's property significantly in these cases. And if I understood your comment, flood control did not comment on that. They didn't say everything was copacetic and okay. If I understood you correctly, I wouldn't want to put words in your mouth.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Elias, flood control did express a history of drainage complaints, and they did express concern, and that was highlighted in the staff report earlier, where
So this
the site
is
is
a history
constrained.
of complaints too. So it's not just individual cases or one case, but rather a pattern, you'd say, of a problem that's been created there.
They reported on at least one complaint in 1998 from a previous parcel owner regarding the placement of a fence. So there is a history, and flood control did express that.
But from 98 to today, that's a long time, so that's not really a pattern. That's not fair to say. That's good. That's okay. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you, Chris.
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Carroll.
I just had one question for the applicant's representative or the applicant themselves. Is that
Well,
okay?
I'm going to let them respond as soon as the last witness comes up. So let me do that, and then you can ask
Okay.
the questions. How's that?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, the
Do you have
last
another witness?
person should be Teresa Cotter. Ms. Cotter, if you could please come up and identify yourself for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm Teresa Cotter. I live at 5385 Placita Caserio. I know what's been said, but, I guess I'd take a totally different stand. I've lived there for 20 years. And when, Josh Meyer moved in, he's, split a lot. He put in a massive driveway on this lot that, disrupted the neighborhood for a long time. And from when he did that, you could see that the wash is moving over. I know I talked to the neighbor, Mr. Pace, this morning, and he said that he had talked to Josh last week, and Josh, to split the lot, he'd have to share a driveway that he put in, and he'd also have to build a bridge over the wash to access this new lot. I just oppose this. I think it's going to be devastating to the neighborhood. It has 7 houses on the street, including Josh's. It's a small little area. He already split his lot once. He splits it again. I've heard that he drives out-of-state plates. I think once you approve this, he's probably going to move on to his next place and, do the same thing there. I'm sorry, I'm nervous. But I just wish you would I strongly oppose this, and I wish you would too.
Okay, any questions? Thank you, Ms. Cotter.
Okay.
At this point, I'm going to ask the applicant or his rep to please come up and retort any arguments that have made. And Supervisor Carroll, as soon as they're done, you can ask your question.
Well, when you're done, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, Supervisors.
I only wanted to reiterate for you that we are here to talk about a lot split to create two parcels that are both over an acre in size. Mr. Myers and his wife and daughter do reside in this home as their primary residence, and those 1 acre lots are typical. They're larger lots. You know, this isn't a mass graded subdivision like what we may see other places, or even in this area. These are large, custom graded home lots and custom homes. They are large homes. It's a beautiful, beautiful neighborhood. And with that does come constraints in design, and we need to be very critically careful of impacts to the drainage patterns, impacts to the views, impacts to the vegetation, the wildlife corridors, HDZ. All of these things are very important and have been carefully considered with the HDZ set-aside area that we are proposing on the parcel that still allows room for a buildable lot along with the primary and secondary septic tank systems that are necessary to support it. And again, just to reiterate about the drainage, as an engineer, that's something I can talk about. Even with a custom home, a grading permit will be required. That's not part of this action. That would be the next step if the board were to approve this lot split. Would be the construction of a home with a building permit and a grading permit, and it would be my experience that flood control would want to see a drainage statement outlining the existing floodplain and these sorts of things, as well as the secondary drainage ways. So all of those things are well protected by the codes and ordinances that are enforced by staff. Questions?
Supervisor Carroll.
Ask the applicant whether the lot is deemed buildable, and you're his representative and an engineer, and I would, the opponent said it was not buildable, but you're saying through engineering and through some HDZ as well as other requirements that you're still going to be compatible with a buildable lot as far as your engineering preview.
Yes, sir, Chairman, Supervisor Carroll. It's not going to be cheap. It's they're going to have to to maybe put in a stem wall or a retaining wall. I think that there's about 3 or 4 feet of fall across the buildable area that we have specified in the figures presented in the staff report. So it's not easy, but it never is with custom graded homes in this area. I mean, you need to work with the terrain to put something in the built environment that works with the natural.
And maybe you're not, and you could refer to your applicant, but I was just at Fred Pace's house, and I've been there many times. He's right off a river. This lot is adjoining Fred. And do you have Mr. Pace's expertise? Have you consulted with him, and he is not an opponent to this?
Yes, I have met with Fred Pace over the last, I bought the house in 2004. Putting the driveway in was a huge issue. It did upset some people to improve the neighborhood to such standards that you would see elsewhere. And Mr. Pace actually signed easements and documentation allowing me to move the driveway as long as he was protected and he could use the existing driveway, which he can do. And yes, he supports the lot split. He is not, me and Fred have, we've worked together on various easements over the years. There's one thing I do want to say about out-of-state plates, though. I am an Arizona resident. I do pay taxes here, and yes, I do have a home out of state, so I do have different plates, but I have 2 cars with Arizona plates.
I see.
So I am here.
Thank you.
Well, I thank you for that.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Miller.
if there's no further public comment on this,
There is no public comment. However, there's a letter that's been submitted. It's unsigned.
No, this gentleman just handed it to me, Mr. Cotter.
I understand that it is unsigned.
I'm just telling you.
Excuse me, Mr. Supervisor Carroll. Pardon?
We need you to come and speak into the microphone if you're going to say that, sir.
yeah.
It's a legitimate question.
Tom Cotter again. I just wanted to give that letter because it is part of your file that is on your website. Fred Pace filed that.
So that's background information from our information that you have as well, Chris?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, as part of the Board of Supervisor packet, there is a signed letter from Mr. Fred R. Pace saying we, I guess he and his wife, do not support the proposed lot split.
Oh, you have a signed copy of it, sir?
I have yes, it's part of the board packet in PDF. We received it, we took it in dated August 14th, 2013. So when they come in, we customarily will date stamp the documents, and it is part of the board packet and the board record.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Purdy. Supervisor Miller.
Mr. Chairman, I guess my question, I would have a final question for the applicant regarding this letter.
The applicant or the rep?
The
Or either?
representative or the applicant, either
Okay.
one. This letter, Chris said, was dated August of this year. Have you had a conversation with Mr. Pace since then?
I met
Didn't
with
you say
Fred
last
Pace
week?
a week ago.
Okay.
I had a conversation with him in the driveway with Overdawn Olson. She was there, and we were talking about this issue in front of us.
Okay, thank you.
You know, like I said, all this stuff was signed years ago.
Did
Years
you know
ago,
that-
approving.
Did you know that this letter existed?
I had no idea. And he
You had
didn't
no idea that on August 14th, he signed a letter saying that he opposed this lot split?
No, absolutely not. I had
Well,
no
why
idea.
don't you show it to him so that you can see it? That would seem to me to be fair.
Well, this letter here is not signed. Okay, like I said, I've never seen this letter. Fred has never expressed an interest to me in denying a lot split. Fred has been working with me for the last 8 years since I bought the house to accommodate the driveway. He's signed off on various issues. I know that I've had many meetings with Fred, and Fred did not express the contents of this letter, last week when I met with him. So.
All right, any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry,
Supervisor
I don't
Lewis.
mean to interrupt and belabor all of this, but it seems interesting to me. Ms. Cotter has something to say, I think, that would add to this conversation. I know it's unusual to allow a person to come back up, but she said she had a conversation with Mr. Pace this morning, so that might prove to be illuminating.
Yeah, guys, I think that a lot of these letters were generated, and they were actually generated by these individuals before you. I think they generated them for everyone in the subdivision to sign. For whatever reason, 7 years later or 6 years later, they're changing their mind on what they signed, what they allowed me to set out to do. Circumstances have changed, and I know several of the other neighbors in the subdivision that were presented these letters, and they didn't sign it, and that's why you don't have them.
But
They
we have a
didn't want
signed
any-
one from Mr. Pace.
I understand, sir. I was talking about other residents within the subdivision that signed it. I mean, I got over, I don't know how many signatures it is, 75%, but, this is something coming up way later, I think, in the game that, people are, we have personal issues. That's.
I would like to
that,
hear from Ms. Cotter to hear what she heard from Mr. Pace this morning.
It's out of form.
I think it's relevant, sir.
All right, I'm going to allow you to address the question and that question alone. Please come up, identify yourself for the record one more time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate that.
Teresa Cotter, neighbor. I just talked to Fred this morning. He couldn't come today, but he did send the letter, and he did tell me about the meeting he had last week with Mr. Myers, and he said he's trying to be cordial with him because he is his neighbor, but he strongly opposed it, and he filed the letter, and he said that he feels like Mr. Myers is trying to force it down his throat. He said he strongly opposed it. I sent the letter. He has a hard time dealing with him, but he has to live next door to him. And that's when I found out about the have to do a bridge over the wash, because Fred told me that with this conversation with Mr. Myers.
All right, thank you. What's the will of the board?
Mr. Chairman, if there's no further speakers, I move to close the public hearing and approve the lot split CO 12-73-128 Casa Rio Estates, portion of Lot 22, approval with special conditions as identified by the Planning and Zoning Board.
Motion and second to close the public hearing and approve item number 23, CO 12-73-128 with special conditions by the Planning and Zoning Commission. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. No. Roll call.
Supervisor Bronson. Supervisor Carroll. Supervisor Elias.
No.
Supervisor Miller.
Aye.
Chairman Valadez.
No. By your vote of 2 to 3, motion fails. Moving to Transportation Traffic Ordinance, item number 25, and ordinance number 2013-57.
Mr. Chairman, this is a hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address us on this item at this time? If not, I move to close the hearing and approve item 25 and ordinance 213-57.
Second.
Motion and second to approve item number 25, close the public hearing, and approve ordinance number 2013-57. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Moving to the addendum agenda, item number 4 under Flood Control District Board.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move the item as well as item 5, school
Let's
okay.
just take it separate, considering
Okay.
we're sitting in a separate board.
Okay, that's right. I'm sorry.
Motion and second to approve item number 4 on the addendum agenda under Flood Control District Board. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Board of Supervisors sitting in regular boards. Now Supervisor Rose.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move items 5, school superintendent, item 6, community services, employment and training contract and award, and item 7, board commissions and committees, Pima County Sports and Tourism Authority.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve item 5, 6, and 7 on the addendum agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Moving to call to the public. First, I'm going to call Mary Murphy. Please come up. Identify yourself for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi again, Mary Murphy, Green Valley. How's everybody? You're probably thinking, is she going to give us more family stories? Does she have more family stories than she does blazers? I don't know, it'd be a close call. I just have to say that the last time I was here, I mentioned my Aunt Marge, but I forgot to say that her given name was Marguerite, and she was Green Valley's first margarita. So, from there, we will move on to, and I didn't even know you guys were meeting today. I thought it was first and third Tuesdays, so I'm kind of here when I found out. But it was this article in Sunday's newspaper about the dust storms on I-10. They're killer. Everybody knows it. And now, where's the family story in this with Ms. Murphy? My family that started Green Valley, my sister, I have a sister, she's younger, and I'm the nice one. She married into a family in the neighborhood that was the family with the developers, the original builders of Arizona City. So my family kind of coincides with 2 towns here that were started. I'm quite familiar with that stretch of highway. For 36 years, I remember seeing cotton blowing around out there. I know the vegetation is gone, the drought prevails. I've been sandblasted out there myself with contact lenses and mascara. I was driving blind. One of the worst things that can happen to a person. I've only had to pull off the road once in my time. And it was out here and it was in a hailstorm. But I'm reading all about this in ADOT, and they're at a dead end, and they're frustrated, and I'm reading all these names and all these experts, and it's Senator Farley. Now, is that a state senator? Okay, I'm not sure. I know everybody here, but I'm reading about Arizona City and Casa Grande, and they're getting a big, is it a mega mall or something that's coming, and love to see this going on. Toltec, remember the hamburgers at the Toltec Theater, and wondering if it's still there. And What about the ostrich ranch? Is that still there? But when I sit and see, I'm not up and down that stretch of highway these days since Mom passed away, and we're not back and forth for family gatherings. This is life and death, and I hear about your road issues and everything. Priorities, the medical model of triage always served me well, and this is life and death. I don't know how you figure into it. Maybe tell your counterparts at Pinal County that Mary Murphy from Green Valley is onto them, and this has got to stop. Some of the research I've done, military models are you know, the hedgerows that blocked us, our Allied advance into Europe come to mind. Revegetation, building walls, they kind of did the same things. I have one word, it's oleanders. Oleanders. I have no idea what these people have considered, but I don't see any women named in any of these articles. So how to make a proposal to them, and I'd be happy to assist in the color scheme. But
Ms. Murphy, please
it
summarize.
would beautify, it's safety, it's life and death. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, I'm going to call Jerry Arabani. Please come up, identify yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
I didn't plan to speak. It's Jerry Antiboni. I live in Oro Valley. I find it interesting that Supervisor Carroll received positive input recently for the 10-cent gas tax. But now, has he forgotten that many people have lost their health care and doctors? Also, many have huge increases due to Obamacare. I wouldn't be surprised if they will be contacting their state representative to state their disapproval to the $10 gas tax, because I know I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board or call the public? Seeing no one, this meeting stands adjourned.